From the beautiful campus of Casper College, it's the T-Birds Coaches Show, bringing you game breakdowns, expert analysis, and exclusive interviews. Here's your host, Tom Myler.
Hello, T-Bird fans, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Casper College Coach Show. Joining us, sadly, for the last time this season, Coach Bennett. Coach, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And unfortunately, it's not happier news, and like I mentioned, it is the last time that we'll probably hang out until next season. Region 9 title game, you end up losing 2-1.
Yeah.
Nail biter, could have gone either way. We were rooting for you, and we were watching. Just couldn't kind of put a couple in the back of the net.
Yeah, it was a good game. I mean, it was a little bit of a wind going, maybe 15 miles an hour, which was pretty steady. It didn't affect the play overall as much as you'd think. 0-0 at half. We had an early breakaway. We had a couple of really good looks. So did they in the first half. Either team could have been up 1-0 at half. We talked about some adjustments to make it half. We felt like we weren't possessing the ball quite as well as we could, not finding feet quite as well as we could. Maybe attacking them with a dribble a little bit more. In the second half, man, we came out and thought for the first 15, 20 minutes played really, really well. And about 15 minutes in, of course, Taylor Miller, who was playing on a badly sprained ankle, she couldn't even practice all week. She practiced the day before at Laramie a little bit and said, I think I'm good to go. So she goes out, she makes a great move, all individual on her, and scores a great goal. And we're up 1-0. A few minutes later, she gets another shot off that hits right in the upper corner, hits the crossbar, hits the post, goes out. That could have been a 2-0. And then they came down and they scored off of a ball that kind of pings around amongst some mix, and a girl finishes it off, which is a great goal, and kind of a similar play shortly after that. They ended up 2-1. And that kind of stayed that. We had some other opportunities, but it was a good game. Could have gone either way. I thought our girls played really, really hard. We were pretty banged up with some injuries, but, man, the kids stepped up. It's one of those games, and we look back, we had throughout the season, we played Iowa Western earlier in the year. We had a 1-0 lead, ended up losing 3-2. Laramie County earlier in the year, we had a 1-0 lead, ended up tying 1-1. This game, we had a 1-0 lead, ended up losing 2-1. So, throughout the year, we had 3 times in the regular season where we had leads. We ended up giving up those leads. Against Iowa Western, we have a 1-0 lead. They're right now, I think, ranked 5th in the country. We had a stretch in there early in the year. We ended up losing that game 3-2. Had an opportunity to tie it up late. Laramie County had a 1-0 lead, ends up in a tie. And then this game, we have a 1-0 lead, ends up in a loss. So, we were right there to really only having one loss on the year. And who knows? We might have been ranked inside the top 10 if you win those and you're going to nationals and you're feeling better about yourselves. But overall, we had a great year. Going to miss some players that are moving on, and not quite sure where some of them were going yet. But the program's been progressing each year, and we've been during the regular season. We've been one of the top teams every year. Unfortunately, we just got to get past that last game, and they can go either way. But you always have 2 or 3 teams at the top of this league in the end that are capable of beating anybody, and that's what's happened the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, it was a great season overall. Had a little mix-up there at the very end with some technical issues. So instead of having probably the championship game here, you go down to Laramie. And who knows? That could have been the big difference.
Yeah, those are always things you think about. If that hadn't happened with with having to forfeit a game and moving them from first to third, we play one less game. Maybe we don't have. Well, there definitely would have been a couple of kids. They got injured in that game. We're at home. You're sleeping different. Little things can make a difference when the game is that close. But either way, we had to play the game. We didn't end up coming out on ahead, and we'll get training here for the off season, and got some good recruits coming in already. That we've signed 9 new kids, and we'll wait and see with some other kids, how that goes. But we're in good shape for where we're going.
Yeah, no rest for Coach Bennett, huh? You're done with the season. Now you're already thinking about spring training and into next season with these new kids coming in, and you just don't get any break, do you, Coach?
Nope. We're trying to help some kids move on to get to the schools where we feel like in the level they can play at. We've got some Division I, a lot of Division II schools that are after some of our kids. So hopefully those kids will continue to play and go to school and complete their education. All of those things are so important. Rather than, we can be a little disappointed and sad about that the season's over, but you're here to go to school and you're here to get an education, and soccer is just a vehicle to help provide that, and we hope that they can continue to go to school and complete those degrees.
Well, we're rooting for your kiddos to move on, whether it's just with soccer or just with an education, wherever they might go. But kind of looking back on the season, what was kind of like, hey, these were some of my favorite moments from that season?
Well, there's a lot of them. For the team, they really knew how to just keep playing. They played in a lot of tight games. I thought, I can think back. Both of the goals when we played Gillette in the first round game, Kennedy Henley, who, we had talked about, hey, in these situations, if there's a foul and they're kind of milling around, just come up there and hit the ball, and she scores. And of course,
goal. And
then Taylor Miller at the end of the game, she beats 3 players from about the midfield line and goes in and cements it. I thought all our defense played really, really hard all year. We only gave up 1 goal off of a corner kick this year. Last year, that was a struggle for us. We probably got scored on 8 or 9 times. Well, overall in the season, I think we got scored 8 times off of corner kicks. We were better in conference. But we've led the league in defense as far as goals given up the last 4 years during the regular season. They just played hard. They're a lot of fun to be around. I'm just grateful that I get to be a part of that. I say this all the time. I don't win games as a coach. The players win games. I'm fortunate enough to be able to recruit some good kids, and they get to go out there and play. We really don't try to make it overly complicated. We got to be demanding sometimes. We got to get on them sometimes. But in the end, it's a game where you have to go out and play. There's no timeout. You got to play 45 minutes, so the kids have to go play. So I try to create from a practice standpoint. This is how you got to go play with some ideas within that. But the more they get comfortable with each other, the more success we end up having. And so that, other than that, they just did a really, really good job.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, before we end, is there anything you want to let our fans know? Any final comments before we wrap up the season?
Thanks for coming out. When we were at Western Wyoming, you brought this kind of a moment. Western Wyoming ends up with a lot of kids from Utah, and we end up having several from Utah, but there was probably 600-700 people at that game. So that was a lot of fun. And a shout out to Kelly Walsh High School. We had some issues with our field this year, and they were gracious, and we were able to play home games there, and they helped set stuff up. I can't remember the Terry Hooker, who's the kind of the district guy over athletics. He did a great job. But he had a crew guy there. I can't remember his name, but he would set stuff up and was just great. So shout out to them and the community for being a part of that. That was great.
Well, thank you, Coach, for just being coach and for joining us here and kind of letting our fans pick your brain a little bit. And we really have enjoyed having you here.
Yeah. Hey, one last thing I forgot, and thanks to our administration for coming down to our game. President was there. I think Corey Peacock was there. Of course, our athletic director was there. But thank you so much for coming down and supporting us. I really appreciate that, and I know our athletes did. So we appreciate the support.
Awesome. Well, folks, see you next time.